What's up, folks? Jay here again. I'm back with your most asked questions answered. My wife and I have been living here for about 2.5 years after having visited for the first time back in 2012. And I definitely don't profess to know everything, but I've learned a lot and I'm happy to share whatever I got with you guys. So just drop your questions down below, leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe and tick that little bell so you know when I drop the next video. And I'll keep answering your questions to the best of my ability. Another big question I get all the time is Belize actually safe? So before you book a flight or move your whole life down here, you want to know one thing, right? Is Belize safe? Is anything going to happen? Is it going to be okay? Not the headline version you see in Facebook groups, not the Facebook panic version, not the crazy stuff you hear on the news, the real version. I've broken it down into 5 questions, mini questions like the last video. So that's what we're gonna look at, what crime actually looks like here. Is Caye Caulker different from Belize City? Is violent crime common for expats? And what common sense precautions matter? Do people exaggerate online? You guys already know half the answers here, I think. If you've done any research at all, you'll know that people always exaggerate online. Bad news travels fast. Usually, having too good a time to leave a good review, but when something bad happens, they can't wait to tell you about it, right? It's true in everything in life. So to tear the Band-Aid off before I get deep into the questions here, Belize's national homicide rate is about 20 murders per 100,000 people, which puts us, being in Belize here, well above the national average and historically puts us in, the top 15 to 20 countries worldwide based on a homicide rate. About 2/3 of those murders, though, before you get scared, happen in Belize City proper. So if you take Belize City out of the equation, the rest of the country's homicide rate drops to about 7 per 100,000 or per capita, which is not in the top 15 globally and closer to the global average and about the same as the USA. On the Caye, like I said, it's kind of like crimes of opportunity, right? So if you leave, your stuff sitting on your golf cart and you're gone for a few hours, it may not be there when you get back, but people on Caye Caulker specifically tend to steal bicycles. Happens a lot, but they don't take them off the island for the most part. A lot of the time it's like you'll see like somebody drunk get on a bike and ride it to the next spot, leave it there, wake up, and then sometimes even bring it back. There are cases where people will steal the bikes and then put them on a boat and take them to Belize City to sell them or things like that. But it's not, you don't see people breaking into each other's houses or anything like that. It's pretty safe that way. A lot of times you'll see like a phone or something left on a bar at a restaurant or a wallet, and then the bartenders or bar staff will take it and put it behind the bar, and then they'll make a post in those Facebook groups for locals to say, like, if anybody reports missing, ID or wallet or phone, it's this color, blah, blah, you must be able to unlock it in order to claim it. So they're not just going by hearsay. You have to prove that you own it. That, and then, a lot of times the money's still in the wallet kind of thing if it's picked up by bar staff. If it's left, at a bench at a restaurant and nobody sees it, or like an outdoor area, it may not be there when you get back, but such is life, right? So just kind of make sure you got your stuff on you. You're not going to be going anywhere packing all your stuff. Like, the days of bringing thousands of dollars on your person into a new country is like ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept in 2026, right? Just, you can come down here, get a few hundred US dollars to get you from Belize City to wherever you're going, or from the water taxi port to wherever you're going, or from the airport to wherever you need to go. Then you can just use your bank card at the ATM and take out money, right? It's pretty easy. The Belize dollars are pegged at the US dollar 2 to 1. So 2 Belize dollars is 1 US dollar. So every time you see a price here for $25 on the menu, it's essentially Belize dollars, which means it's 12.5 US dollars, right? So it's cut the price in half. Pretty easy math, 2 to 1, hard to screw up. You will use call it a $20 bill US if you're, bringing US coin in, and let's say you bought something for $10 US, you would get that $10 change then potentially in a mix of Belize and US dollars. So you just gotta kind of do your math. It's used interchangeably, pretty easy that way. The crime in Caye Caulker is definitely different than Belize City though. So Belize City is where, most of the crime occurs, right? Went through those numbers. Should just take Belize City out of the map, which is a population of about 65,000 out of Belize's entire 420,000, call it. You're looking at more like a 360,000 population with way lower of a crime rate, right? That's the entire country, right? So on Belize, on Key Cochrane, we only have 2,500 people. Violent crime common for expats? Also no. So the crime on the south side of Belize, basically kind of like the south side of Chicago, if you think of it that way, it is typically Bloods and Crips type stuff, like gang on gang, and tourists are not, a target. Expats or foreigners like myself living here, expat is a very American term to say that they're expatriated. I just call it a foreigner. It seems like, it's what we are really, but I'm also Canadian. The violent crime for foreigners here, it's not a thing if you're not making yourself a target, right? So if you're going to be, hanging out with a bunch of people and doing, some things that you may not think are above board where you're from, and you try to do the same thing here and you piss somebody off, drunk bar, in a bar somewhere, or you're flashing all your bling, you're kind of asking for trouble, right? So like I travel, when we do go to places where we're not familiar, like anywhere on the planet, I don't wear flashy stuff. I don't want to make myself a target. I don't wear things that'll make me stand out in a potentially obnoxious way. Just using common sense that way, right? So that said, no, not common. And some of the Belizeans we met have been, way nicer than any of the foreigners or expats or tourists that we've met along the way. And we've become, forged some pretty good friendships with Belizeans here. So one of the questions were like, what were some common sense precautions? Same thing. Don't go down a dark path at night if you don't know where you're going or who you're going with. Everything is a crime of opportunity for a large part. So not unlike anything you've done in, in the States or Canada, wherever you're at. Same idea. Don't go down a dark alleyway that you don't know anybody at like 3 a.m. while you're drunk, right? Try to have better sense than to be out at 3 a.m. drunk. But if you're going to do it, just travel in groups with your friends. Make a pact not to leave one person behind. If you're, the odds of you being 2 or 3 deep, probably going to be entirely safe anyway, but better safe than sorry, right? What do people exaggerate most online? And that is absolutely everything. They exaggerate the, one bad trip, or somebody like, my last video said, I read in one of the Facebook groups, saying, don't drink the water in Belize. It made me terribly sick, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it's because you had a Caesar salad that had romaine in it that had, they came from a place with an E. coli recall on the romaine. So it wasn't the water on Key Cochrane that did it to you in your hotel. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So people exaggerate all the negative. It's just one of those things where people just like to be loud of when they're upset and they want to feel heard and seen, and I get it. They want the empathy, but they are willing to drag people through the coals or over the coals to get it. It's kind of gross, but yeah, the world doesn't revolve around everybody all the time, and if they feel slighted, we all just want to be heard at the end of the day. So people will be very vocal when they're negative, right? It's I sell stuff online, and the loudest people are the ones who had issues going wrong to leave you that 1-star review. But every other transaction is probably a 5-star. It's just people are happy and they don't think to leave good reviews for things that are out of the ordinary, or you got something you expected, right? So that said, leave 5-star reviews for businesses, especially online, especially small ones. You could really help somebody. And if you're in any of those groups, try to share positive stories as well, because people asking questions need to know that, like you guys, they need to know that it's not all bad when you're in those groups, right? And they can be toxic on their own right. So ultimately, this quick summary here is that Belize crime overall looks high on paper, but that's because a lot of it is Belize City, and that skews the numbers. Outside of Belize City, the violent crime rates are much, much lower, just like the south side of Chicago or like the Jane and Finch area of Toronto. One thing that I can tell you is that we chose Key Cochrane because it's for many reasons, not just for the lack of crime, but for many reasons, and one of which being that my wife felt safe walking alone at night without our giant Great Dane dog. So that should tell you something, right? She doesn't walk fast. That said, there's a lot of noise online about Belize, like I said, so I'm just here to give you, kind of like the steady version here. Take what you want, what fits your situation, and make smart choices ultimately, right? Go slow, stay sharp, don't fight the tide, and drop more questions down below, please and thanks.